Okay, so we have our last section here is to solve for a variable in terms of other variables. So in this case, we're not going to get a number. Our answer is not going to be 7 or 15 or -7. It's going to be an expression. So I'm solving for y in terms of x. So when you see that, solve for y in terms of x, it means isolate y. The in terms of part means that x will be on the other side. So we want y by itself, and then move x or to the other side. If it says solve for x in terms of y, then move y to the other side. So if we look at number 1, I have 4y is equal to 24 minus 8x, and I want to get y by itself. So I don't really care what's on the other side. I just want y by itself. So what's 4 doing to y? It's multiplying. So we do the opposite, divide by 4. But I have to do the same thing to both sides. So I'm going to divide everything on the other side by 4. 4's cancel out. They're equal to 1, so I have 1y on that side. And then everything on the the right side is divided by 4. So 24 divided by 4 is 6. And -8x divided by 4 is -2x. And that is our final answer. It's in terms of x. It's not a number, but we have y by itself. That's all we want. And what we're going to be doing with this later is taking that equation and graphing it, because it's a linear equation. We can figure out our slope, our y-intercept, and graph it from there. But that's later. All right, so a little bit more complicated. I want to get y by itself here. And if I look around, I got this -5 that's right next to the y. But I also have this -3x that's there. I want to get y by itself. So I need to get rid of that and that. Addition or subtraction, bedmass in reverse. So this -3x, I know there's multiplication between the -3 and the x, but in terms of what this thing is doing to y, it's subtracting to y because it's -3x. So we do the opposite. I add 3x. I want to get rid of it because I want y by itself. So that becomes 0. I have -5y on the left side. And on the right side, I can't do anything because they're not like terms. So I just write -10 plus 3x, or 3x minus 10. Positive 3x minus 10 means the same thing. Now, I still don't have y by itself because I have to get rid of that -5. So the -5 is multiplying with y. I do the opposite. Divide by -5, and I have to divide the entire side by -5. That will cancel out. So I have y. And on the right side, again, each term needs to be divided by the number on the bottom. If you can't divide both terms on top by the denominator, then you can leave it. But what we're going to do is divide each term and reduce the fractions, because this is what will help us later on when we're graphing. So this means 3 over -5x minus 10 divided by -5. Okay, each term in the numerator is divided by -5. So 3 divided by -5 cannot be reduced without getting a decimal. So we're going to leave it as -3 over 5x. And then -10 divided by -5 is +2. So this will help us later on, because if you remember what we did before with slope and y-intercept, now I know the slope and I know the y-intercept, and I'd be able to graph that. Okay, a couple more, just two more. So we have to combine things that we learned before with what we're doing now. So I have fractions here. I have 2, 5, and 4 in the denominator. And we want to think about what a common factor would be in order to get rid of that denominator. So between 2, 5, and 4, if you can't figure it out, you could just multiply them all. It's not going to be the lowest one, but it always works. 2 times 5 is 10, times 4 is 40. So I know for sure that that is a factor, but it's not the lowest one. So 20 would work. We can multiply by 20. So 20 times 3 over 2 minus 20 times 4x over 5 plus 20 times 3 over 4 is equal to, and I don't really have to write it because it's going to end up being 0 anyway, but I just want to make sure you remember to multiply everything by the common multiple or common factor, even though it's 0. So now 20 divided by 2 is 10. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So now, since I divided those out to get 10, this means 10 times 3y. This means 4 times 4x. This means 5 times 3. I'm going to write it out, but you could always just skip to the next step here. I have 10 times 3y minus 4 times 4x plus 5 times 3 is equal to 0. Because 20 times 0 is 0. So this would be 30y minus 16x plus 15 equals 0. And then now I'm solving for y. Doesn't matter how I do it. I could move these to the other side by doing opposite operations, but I just need y by itself. So if I can do it in one step, I'll do it in one step. I'm going to take this 30y and move it onto the other side. So I do that by doing the opposite of it. I want to make it 0 on this side. So the opposite of 30y is negative 30y. It's 0 now. So on the left side, I have negative 16x plus 15. 0 minus 30y is negative 30y. So y is on one side of the equation. It's almost by itself, but not quite. I want to divide by negative 30. So negative 30 and negative 30 become 1. So y is by itself. On the other side, I have 16, negative 16 over negative 30x plus 15 over negative 30. But we can reduce that. So 16 over 30 would be positive 8 over 15. And positive 15 divided by negative 30 would be negative 1 over 2. So y is by itself. It's isolated. It's on the other side. It's on the right side. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which side the variable is on, the left or the right side. All right, last one. So the complication here is we got some brackets. I'm going to get rid of that first. So we're going to multiply by distributing 6y minus 12 plus 4x equals 9. And I want to get y by itself, I believe. Solving for y still, right? Yeah. So since I have to move this, the same number of moves either way. I have to bring the 9 over, or sorry, if I bring the 6y over, I'd have to bring the 9 over. So either way, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take these guys and move them over there. So I'm going to do the opposite of them. Oops, sorry. I'm going to do the opposite of them. So the opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. And I'm going to do it one step at one time, because I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do the opposite of 4x. So now on the other side, I have to add 12 and subtract 4x. So negative 12 and positive 12 is 0. 4x and negative 4x is 0. Now over here, those are like terms, so I can combine them, but the negative 4x is still there by itself. So on the left side, 6y, that's 0, that's 0. 9 plus 12 is 21. And there's nothing to add the 4x to, the negative 4x to, so it'll be minus 4x at the end. Then, to get y by itself, I'm going to divide by 6, divide by 6. And remember, I'm dividing everything by 6, so actually, why don't we write it like this? Divide by 6, divide by 6. 6 is canceled out. Y equals 21 over 6, divide by 3, so it'll be 7 over 2. And then reduce 4 over 6 to 2 over 3x. And that's it. Y is by itself. We've isolated for y in terms of x, or solved for y in terms of x. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover for this week.